Okay, frame 4 chord. Okay. Okay, thank you. Hello everybody, and welcome to Spiritual Threads video number 3. Today I want to talk about some people that are struggling with addictions, and certainly I'm just going to refer to these people by their first name. And anyway, I want to start off the people that I'm going to be referring to, or their first names will be Ben and Adam, Bradley and Douglas, and of course there are a number of others, but they will be the ones that I will be, shall we say, focusing on during this particular video, and also video 4, which will be coming out shortly. In any event, let me start by talking about my friend Ben, who I have known for, I want to say, almost 14 years. And anyway, Ben initially was someone that I knew that in fact lived very close to my home, and he is a gentleman in his late 30s now, and Ben has been a drug addict for a number of years, because seemingly it started when he was in his teenage years. And so anyway, when I first got to know him, of course he was down dosing from methadone, and but there was no mention, and he certainly didn't mention anything to me about doing other substances. However, as the time progressed and went on, it became clear that he was doing other substances, and eventually he was into a rented home, and so anyway, later on he moved into my home, and so we became, as he said, like, in fact, shortly after I got to know him, it was at his suggestion when he said to me one day, he said, "Let's become forever friends." And certainly I had no problem with that. And so anyway, I want to just talk a little bit about Ben. And I realize that some people would probably say, well, the fact that I'm a friend of his and we're forever friends, they would say, well, why talk publicly or openly about the fact that he has a drug addiction? Because some would say, well, as a friend, I mean, are you not really, are you not really offending him? Are you not really shaming him by talking openly about his situation? And but to these kinds of people that maybe have those kinds of thoughts, I would simply say this: you know what? The truth is the truth, and in my opinion, it needs to be talked about. And I also feel that by talking out, whether it be publicly or just very openly with others, I feel that it also can help perhaps other addicts out there that are dealing with their addictions, because certainly I feel that anyone's situation is always somewhat different from anybody else's or from anyone else's. And so I do feel that if it helps anyone else that say is struggling with an addiction, that's wonderful. Or perhaps it may even help say their families, whether it be parents and family siblings and so forth, that are struggling, trying to understand the various circumstances that certainly one endures when you know of someone that does have an addiction, whether that be drugs or alcohol or whatever it may be. But certainly, as we know, that the major ones in today's society is, number one, of course, is the drugs and the opioids, and secondly would be alcohol, and then it goes down from there, which would be tobacco and perhaps other food addictions and whatever else, which are more minor. However, I would say this in regards to Ben, that certainly I've seen pretty much all sides to Ben. I have seen the happy side of him. I have seen the moody side. I have seen certainly his anger, and not only did I see his anger or whatever, I also felt it at one point. And certainly it has been, I want to say, a very, I guess one could say, a unique experience. However, an experience that after having him live in my home for 3.5 years, it's an experience that I would never want again, because I tell you, it's really an eye-opener. And of course, before Ben had left here, and in fact when I had asked him to leave, it got to the point that his drug abuse or his addiction was really getting out of control, despite the fact that he would say to me so often that he was so determined to get out of the drug world, because he kept saying to me he was down dosing on methadone, which he was, and in fact at one point he was doing very well. And but also, as the time continued on and he was staying here, I became aware, because it was so evident that he was obviously doing other substances. And so, as I said before, before I had asked him to leave here, he was certainly doing other substances, whereby he was he was paranoid, he was hallucinating, and when someone is hallucinating, they can be very, very difficult. He would talk out loud at night. He would curse during the night. He would, when he started to hallucinate, it actually just got pretty much out of hand, and it was beyond anything that I, wanted to actually have in my home. And also I felt that it was, if you will, it was even concerning, because in regards to his health, he was losing weight. He was not having any type of appetite. And even though during his time of staying here, he, in addition to his usage of marijuana, and he did have the legal marijuana for medicinal purposes, and he had all the legal documentation, he felt that it would certainly help him rest at night, that it would give him an appetite, and so forth. But while it may have helped in that way, there was, I believe, certainly there was a downside to it as well. And this was really what was happening. And just to say initially that when he decided to move into my home, some people, I'm sure, and some have said at that time, that I was just simply giving him and providing him a hideaway to do his drugs, which in fact nothing could be further from the truth, because I was giving him what I would consider the perfect atmosphere to be living in order for someone to actually move away from their addiction and completely get out of the drug world, because the atmosphere in my home was drug-free, alcohol-free, and smoke-free, because I have never, ever done drugs, nor have I ever drank alcohol, nor have I ever smoked a cigarette. So as a result, I believe that the atmosphere in my home was far from ever providing him with a hideaway to do his drugs. And in addition to that, before he moved in, he was in a rented home, living by himself, and certainly he had done, I believe, a number of drug substances while living in that particular rented home, long before he ever decided to move into my home, because he had been a drug addict for a number of years prior to doing so. So like I said, for anybody to make that statement, I would say that it was completely absurd and ridiculous, because I was, again, I will repeat, I was giving him a perfect atmosphere to actually get out of the drug world and become drug-free. But instead, he again was very persistent to stay on this very destructive road, and that was to continue on with his drug addiction. But I would also like to say to Ben, if he is listening to this particular video, that while he may be determined to continue to go down the road of destruction and to destroy his life, I'm just as determined to fight for as long as I possibly can to save his life, because Ben is a friend of mine. Ben is someone that I care and love very much, and to see the type of life that he is now living while being on the streets with no place to live, no permanent place to live, and without any form of employment, any type of income, and the list goes on, is literally heartbreaking for me. Anyway, everybody, I thank you for joining me today. Again, coming soon, I will be doing video number 4, and yes, it will continue in regards to Ben and some of the other people that I have mentioned at the beginning of this video. And in the meantime, I would also say, for those of you who have not yet read my first book, which is titled Standing in the Shadows, the Light, it's available on Amazon.com. I would suggest, by all means, pick up a copy today, and you'll have a better understanding of why I'm talking about my friend Ben, and in fact we do have a very strong spiritual connection. So, as I said, if you've already read my book, then you're well aware of that fact. If you haven't, by all means, pick up your copy today at Amazon.com. Again, my book is titled Standing in the Shadows, the Light. Anyway, everybody, I thank you for joining me today. In the meantime, take care, keep safe, may God bless, and I'll see you soon.